Hey everybody, Stu Smith here, going live, taking some questions. Hopefully, be able to get some swim videos in there as well um, for some live critiquing. If you want, you can email me, and if you email me at um, stu at stewsmith.com, you can send me a video, and I'll see if I can get it up during this live show. If I can't, that's all right. We'll do it for the next one, but I'll definitely will critique it for you either by personal email or by one of these shows. So if you feel comfortable doing that, let's do it. Morning, C. Ray. How are you, sir? Um, so started off this week with um, an observation that I noticed that about a month into spring, I tend to get emails and DMs and comments from people who are struggling with shin splints. And that's usually because everybody started running when the weather broke. They're getting outside, starting to run. Maybe they're running on some harder ground than they're used to running on, like pavement or sidewalks. Um, and maybe they should consider going into a running cycle a little more gently on themselves with respect to volume. Like you just don't want to jump back into a 20-mile week after not doing anything all winter. And with running, you may want to not go from treadmills to pavement 100%, maybe 50-50 split of that. Maybe try to find some softer ground, grass, a track. The inside of a track is usually either grass or some turf. If you can run on that, that's even softer than the track usually. Trail runs, beach runs, things like that. But I would avoid a couple of things. I would avoid doing way too much too soon, and I would avoid really hard impact forces of hard ground. Now, things that you need to be able to do also if you're getting some shin splints is you need to have flexible ankles and knees and hips too, right? One thing that probably has saved me over the years from these type of recurring injuries is I have very flexible ankles. Ever since I was a teenager, I did something that was unique to building ankle flexibility. Like in baseball, I was a catcher for 10 years, a lot of movement and flexing and stretching of ankles, in that deep position. Always swam, had scuba fins, so my ankles were getting really stretched that way. And then, of course, transitioning into preparing for spec ops programs, you're swimming with big fins a lot. That also stretches out your ankles. So if you cannot sit on your shins, and if somebody's takes a picture of you from the side, if you can still see daylight from where your foot, your ankle joint is, right? If it looks like this, like you got all this daylight here between your foot and your shin, right? It should be almost flat. You should be able to get the top of your shin and your ankle almost 0 degrees, right? That is flexible ankles. You ever take a look at a ballerina's flexibility, it's even beyond that. It goes into the negative, angle range. Not asking you to be that flexible. You don't want to be hyper flexible or hyper mobile, but you want to have some flexibility so you don't get those recurring shin splint injuries when you do run. So, people typically get shin splints are those who are heavy runners, those who are new to running, and those who pick up their volume way too much. In fact, we had a guy here locally that was at like 12 miles a week. He bumped it up to 20, 22, and 2 weeks later, he's got knee tendonitis or shin splint, little mix of both. It just happens. He was, sometimes less is more. You just progress logically versus, doubling your mileage in a week is not a wise decision. So anyway, that's what typically happens here in the world of training, especially seasonal. You can definitely see these things occur every year if you keep your eyes open. I also wrote another article. It's up on stewsmithfitness.com, and it's talking about taking the advice of don't train for the test, right? How many times have you heard that before, right? Don't train for the test. It's like sometimes that is the stupidest piece of advice I think I've ever heard, um, especially if you have to take a test, right? That'd be like not studying for the ACT and SAT trying to get into college, right? You got to learn how to take the test, right? By actually doing those events in a particular order of the test to figure out how you need to pace yourself, how you need to energize yourself or fuel yourself. And, and then finally, do you have enough energy and the ability to pace at the final event, right? A lot of people are just wasted at that final event. They just bonk and they got nothing left. So anyway, there is strategy to taking these tests, and you get better at that strategy the more often you take that test, and you can start creating little personal strategies for you to perform at your best. Because one thing that is for certain, you will see that basic entry level fitness test again, and it will be a huge factor in whether or not you continue on training in the pipeline or you're done. You are done. In fact, I've seen guys first day of SEAL training be their last day of SEAL training because they failed the PST. I've seen guys that are getting ready to go to, SF selection, um, and they can't get a 240 on their PFT. And I'm talking basic push ups, sit ups, and a 2 mile run. Nothing else. They can't get a 240. They're done. Right. Probably weren't ready for it anyway if you can't do that. I mean, even on a bad day, you should be able to do a 280, right? Or just, in fact, I had a guy that said, I had the flu that day, and he still had a 280. Normally, a 300 guy had to drop it down to a 280 because he was throwing up the night before with some flu bug. So yes, even on a bad day, you can pass these tests. It shouldn't even be a consideration. So yeah, that's what that latest article is about. If you go to stewsmith.com, you'll see "don't train for the test" in quotes, at your own risk, and the benefits of crushing the PFT, the PST, the CFT, the PASS test, whatever that test is. Crushing it can can make you thousands of dollars, or it could cause you to have to pay for college yourself. All right. I saw one of our students recently texted me and said that he got his ROTC scholarship, which is going at the college he was attending, was probably going to save him and his parents about $120,000. So makes a huge difference, just by passing that fitness test. Now, obviously, he had to pass countless other tests, but sometimes it can come down to just that single event, right? And be the determining factor whether or not you get that promotion, whether or not you make that selection, whether or not you get that scholarship, or whether or not you get kicked out of a service academy. Seen that too, right? So you blow off these tests at your own peril. So, all right. Caleb says he's a second class midshipman at Michigan. Applied for a medical waiver and just heard back from BUMED. I was unable to apply to SOAS. I picked up a Navy to Marine scholarship. Good job. Still want to be a SEAL. Would you recommend trying for inter-service transfer a few years into your career? What can you speak about MARSOC? Well, I think about I've known guys that have done both. I have known guys that went from Marines, tried the inter-service transfer. It's probably easier now that we're not doing wartime deployments every cycle to get out before your time is done and do an inter-service transfer now. Back during war days, it was probably really hard to do that. In fact, I didn't see many at all to do inter-service transfers like that, unless you had another person that was in the Marine Corps that wanted to be Navy, or vice versa. You had somebody in the Navy that wanted to be Marine Corps, right? It almost had to be a one-for-one swap to make it work. Now it's probably a little bit easier. So that's one option, yes. MARSOC's great. I think those guys do a great job. You know, they are part of SOCOM. They're still Marines, and they're doing some great things right now, you know, throughout the world, Africa. So yeah, they're getting it done. They're doing some FID missions, which right now FID missions are the pretty kind of like the only game in town, unless you're in, you know, in Ukraine. To my knowledge, there isn't a direct officer route. No, there's not. You're going to have to do a couple of years in the Marine Corps before you can go MARSOC. That is true. Let's see here. Stu, for your runs, what is the slowest pace you prefer to run? Trying to find a balance between goal pace and easy runs. That's a good question. I would say this. I think there's two paces you need to learn to run. You need to run a 6-minute mile pace for your shorter timed run events. You also need to learn a 7-minute mile pace for your longer timed run event. So I would say anything over 3, you should be at that 7-minute mile pace. Now, if you can get sub 7, that's great. But I don't think, you know, for a 4-mile timed run, you should be over 28. I don't think for a 5-mile timed run, you should be much over 35. So I would look at it two ways. If you want to take it a little bit easier, make it a 7-minute mile pace. You want to push your goal pace a little harder, push that 6-minute mile pace. Anything slower than 7 minutes is fine, but I wouldn't go slower than 8. 8 minutes is fine too, but you're going to have to pick it up a notch if you are running, anywhere, for long distances at 8. You may want to pick it up a notch. Do a strategy. Let's say you're running 10 miles. You may not run all of them at 7. You may run a couple in the middle that are closer to 8. But you may have to break sub 7 towards the end or maybe at the beginning to kind of make up for some of those slower miles. So you got to play these little strategies out to what really is your goal with running, right? What's the event? What's your goal time? And figure it out from there. Make your workouts in one of those slots, if that makes sense. Any workouts I can do if I'm behind on push-ups, but everything else is fine. Push-ups, where people screw up, I think, is they do too many push-ups. And what I mean by that is, they think they're bad at push-ups, so they're just going to do push-ups every day, right? Well, you know what? If you do a lot of high volume push-up numbers, like a couple hundred, 200-300 in a day, you need to recover from that. You shouldn't do that every day for long periods of time. Now, I do have a 2-week protocol. In fact, I will post it up here for you. And this is something you can try. It doesn't work really well if you are, let's say, at 90 push-ups and you want to do 100. It's really not meant for that level. It's probably meant for like 60 and you're trying to get 80 to 90. But if you take a look at the link I just put in, it's called Free 2-Week Protocol for Pull-Ups and Push-Ups. And there's a little thing in there, increased by 50 to 100%. I've seen people do that. I've seen people increase 50 to 100%, but you have to understand, they weren't at 90 push-ups when they tried this. They were at like 50 and they got to 75, or they got to 80 in 2 weeks, or they were at 10 pull-ups and they got to 15 or 18 in 2 weeks. If you're single digits on pull-ups, it's real easy to double that. Like you're at 5, getting 10 in 2 weeks is not uncommon at all. So it really kind of depends on where you are on that chart on how effective this workout will be. And it works like this: you do 10 days of daily repetitions, and to figure out how many repetitions you need to do, you multiply by 4 or 5, somewhere in that range of your current max effort. So let's say you can do 60 push-ups. So somewhere between 4 and 5 times that is your range that you should be at every day for 10 days. So what's that? 240 and 300, right? Yeah. So somewhere between 250, 300 every day, that is your range for doing push-ups. You do that for 10 days, and you can make it a different way every day. Sometimes I like to do like just make a regular workout. So if I'm doing a pyramid workout, that counts as my 200. If I get 200, maybe add 50 more later. But on the days I'm doing legs, I'm normally not doing push-ups, but that's when you have to add your push-ups, and you can spread these throughout the day if you want, and just do sets of 20 or 30 spread throughout the day until you get your numbers. You do that every other day. Every day you're doing push-ups for 10 days. You take 3 days off, no pushing whatsoever. Bench press, no overhead press. You're just running, you're swimming. You still do pull-ups, do legs, but you really want to recover those muscle groups for 3 days and then test on day 14. It works really well. For most people. It's not the perfect answer for everybody, but I've seen it work well for many for the last 25 years, men and women, young and old. So my suggestion is give that a try. I think you might be a good candidate. But like I said, it doesn't. If you're at 80 already, probably not going to be your best option. If you're already over 80 and you want to get 100, my advice would be to do push-ups 3 times a week, but push them hard. Like push them hard in a way that you're mimicking like max reps. Like you can do a pyramid, but push hard. You can do max rep sets, so let's say you do 200 or 300 in as few sets as possible, in a workout. And then your third workout can be maybe a sub max effort, but you're building up the volume without failing or fatigue even. You maybe do 20 sets of 10 or 15, right? But you're still working on the volume. And that's really the key. You just got to get used to the volume. You're turning a strength exercise into an endurance exercise. And that's what those kind of numbers are doing. 20 pull-ups is no longer a strength exercise. That is an endurance muscle stamina exercise. Same for 80 to 100 push-ups. It's a muscle stamina exercise. It's all about endurance and be able to recover from that. So volume is very helpful with you performing better on those. Let's see. We got any more questions from the group? I don't see any yet. Let me see what swim video I have in the hopper. Got a few of them in here. Just want to make sure they're going to be helpful. Let me see what's going on here. I need to share my screen. Window, boom. All right. So I think this one is one with fins. I don't think we did this one. So kicks off the wall. Now he's got a real awkward, like this double arm pull didn't do any good there. Don't even bother, right? Just get you got fins on, just keep stretching, kicking your legs. What he's doing here is a little bit too much bicycling. And look at the distance between these kicks. I mean, you might be breaking like 6 inches on these kicks. I mean, I mean, you got these big legs. I mean, your legs should look like 2 to 3 feet spread apart when you're kicking with scuba fins, right? Um, 3 feet would be more of a scissor kick. Between 1 and 2 would be a medium-sized flutter kick. So you need to put more power into your legs. And see that bend of the knee right there? That is like riding a bicycle. So you are doing what is called bicycling here, and it's not very effective when swimming with fins. You got to use more of your hips when you're swimming and open up those legs. So my advice would be to maybe practice some on land. Just do some, get on your back and do big flutter kicks, and then jump in the water right after that and practice, adding some distance in between these things. But it should not look like you're riding a bicycle, and that's what this looks like. And you can really tell with the knee bend, and you can tell with how far apart the fins are coming apart during the stroke. So that is not how you do swimming with fins. All right, open up those legs a little bit. What's a good time for a 5K run? 42-year-old male. Keep up the good work. Like I said, 5 miles, if you can get in that 6 to 7 minute range per mile, that's really good. So 3.1 miles, anywhere between 19 and 20 minutes, I would say is good for a 52-year-old male or 42-year-old male. And that's good for an 18-year-old too. So you're going to have guys that are crushing that thing at sub 6. We just had one of our dudes do it in like 15 something. I was like, oh man, that was impressive. So yeah, he was sub 6 the whole time. The best I've ever done in a 5K is around 18:20. That's probably when I was 25. Now I'm probably more in that 7 to 8 minute mile pace when running a 3 mile or 5K run. So if I can keep it closer to 20, 21, I'm real happy. If I can break 21, that's good for me, at 53 and 205 pounds. I'm pretty happy with that. And the fact that running doesn't hurt at all is a big plus. So, would I like to be at 6 minute mile pace? Yeah, sure, I would. So I would say, depending on your weight, that 6 minute mile may be more elusive to you the heavier you are. But if you're kind of light, I think it's a logical goal for you. I would probably be able to hit that 6 minute mile pace again if I can get down to like 190, 195. That's my college weight, which isn't far away. It's like 10 pounds off. In fact, I may try to do that this summer. Try to lean out to a point where I am at my 22-year-old weight and see what that does for my mile times. All right, so let's see who we got. Landon asking a question. How much are you and your guys swimming on a daily basis? As of now, I'm about 15 to 2,000 meters a day. That's usually where we are. On leg days, we may go a little bit more, just to get some distance in with fins. So we'll probably go between 2 and 3,000, and we'll ramp that up probably at a peak of 4,000 yards in a swim, because you're going to be doing 2 mile ocean swims, which is 4,000 yards. 2 nautical miles is 4,000 yards. So getting used to that is highly recommended. So my recommendation is 15 to 2,000 without fins, 2 to 4,000 with fins would be what I'd recommend. And it doesn't have to be every day. I'd say at least 5 days a week, so you can take 2 days off of being wet. Should I swim without goggles for mental strength? I don't know if it's any more mental. You will have to take a fitness test without goggles somewhere in the training pipeline. You'll have to do drown proofing without goggles. You have to do a 50-meter underwater swim without goggles. So there are events, in Spec Ops training where you can't use goggles. So getting used to that kind of um, feeling is recommended for sure. Will it build mental strength? I don't know. I don't think so. I mean, I was 8 years old swimming without goggles in a backyard pool playing Marco Polo. I'm not sure if that made me mentally tougher. Thoughts on recent increases of allegation of PEDs during buds? Until it's a proven fact and people start getting arrested for it or kicked out of the program for it, I I don't think it's as prevalent as people say. I'd be kind of shocked if it was. Like I said, I went through, I didn't even see it. If it happened, I didn't even see it, nor did I hear um any rumors that it was something. Now I'm hearing that it's some rumors, but it could also be BS. Some people say it's not. Some people say it is. I think it's cheating. Don't recommend it. Yeah, I don't think it's something that is going to be necessarily that helpful. Anyway. All right, Alex, getting ready for the 5K open water swim. Get it on it. How much are you swimming a week, Alex? You're getting ready for a 3-mile swim. That's 6,000 yards. So it'd be interesting to see how you're coming along with your progression. Should I drink seawater to prepare for surf torture? No, that can kill you. What the hell? Sit in seawater, don't drink it. What the hell? What kind of question is that, Tony? 3 times a week, about 2,000 a session. Nice. Good work. Let's see. I think I might have another um video here. I think somebody sent me some treading. You guys want to see some treading videos? Why don't we try that? See what that looks like. Somebody had a underwater camera and sent in some treading. Let's see what that looks like, eh? All right, share screen. Treading water. All right, let's see what this looks like. So, okay, I'm not sure what this is doing, right? So, I think what is the problem here is that too many people think the egg beater should look like an egg beater, right? I think the egg beater is a horrible misnomer for a way to tread because the egg beater would imply that your legs are spinning in a circle like this, where they actually need to be spinning in a circle like this, because you need to produce downward force with your legs like a breaststroke kick, right? But going downward. So your foot should be up high enough to where you're actually pretending like you're kicking a soccer ball with the inside of your foot to the bottom of the pool. I have another article in here that I wrote. In fact, I may share this one. Let me share this one with you because this is important. Crap. Chrome tab. There we go. Got it. All right. So this is my article that I was wanting to show you. So as you can see here, it's called Swimming and CSS Treading Water Step-by-Step Video. Great little swim video here. What someone I would call has a near perfect streamline in swimming is how you do the CSS. But what the problem here with that last swim is mobility. he couldn't get his feet up. Now, do you see how this looks right here? See this position right here? I am actually sitting on my shins with my feet and toes pointing outside of me, right? So that is the up position. Like all this right here, this area from my inside of foot all the way to the top of my shin is now going to be pushing down like I'm doing the breaststroke to create that right leg of egg beater and the left leg of egg beater. And it just alternates. So right leg, left leg, right leg, left leg. And that kind of downward force is going to produce upward force. So you keep your head above the water. It requires this level of mobility in the knees and the ankles and the hips. So I am doing something right now with folks where we're doing 5 minutes of treading, followed by 5 minutes of mobility work on the pool deck. We're doing that for an hour, and it has been helping everybody with treading. And not only that, treading and mobility. And here's one for ankle mobility. We were talking about earlier with shin splints. Like that is ankle mobility right there. I don't know if you can see that in the picture or not, but that is ankle mobility. Check out this article. I'm going to put it in the description. There is also a great little egg beater video here that's pretty good. If I can get it to run, I probably can't get it to run because of video showing a video. Yeah, figured. But anyway, check out that. It's a really good CSS section as well as a good treading, water, and mobility section. For most people, what I have found is that the reason why they are not treading well is they lack knee, ankle, and hip mobility. So, all right. We got any other questions? Yeah, Caleb, I wish I had an answer on the PEDs at Buds. Just haven't seen it personally. I've heard rumors, but I haven't heard any situations where people are actually getting kicked out and caught for them, if that makes sense. But it shouldn't happen. All right, here we go. Potential candidates for SO, especially for buds. There is a ton of information for first phase and getting ready for the gut check. But can you speak on how to gain water confidence during going into phase 2? Um, my suggestion is phase 2 is all about diving. So have you gotten a scuba qualification yet? I would go to a PADI scuba instruction school and take that just basic scuba course. I think that's one way to do it. You're going to learn how to clear your mask. You're going to learn how to breathe underwater using, regulator in your mouth. You're going to learn a little bit about scuba, uh, being negative and positively buoyant. You want to be neutrally buoyant. I would do that. I was glad I'd been scuba diving since I was almost 13 years old. And I've found that dive phase was probably the most fun. Got past pool comp the first try. I enjoyed dive phase a lot. So, but I also love scuba diving as well. Put it this way, I would rather go scuba diving than jump out of airplanes. Like I still go scuba diving, but I don't jump out of airplanes for fun. So I would say do some scuba diving. Thoughts on unorthodox methods to prepare for selection, like putting sand down pants to prepare for itching while running. There's nothing wrong with getting wet and sandy before you go run. I mean, we do that. I mean, we run on this beach every Friday, and during the summer, we will get wet, get sandy, do 2 of those 4 miles wet and sandy. Then we'll go swim. There's nothing wrong with that. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily put it down your pants because no, you're not going to do that when you're at Buds. You're going to put it all over your pants, roll around like a sugar cookie. Um, but those things aren't needed every day. Those things are just fun little gut checks. You can throw in every other week or so. You don't want to do too much. Let's see. Been watching your videos for a while. Had a quick question. When I'm doing my 500 CSS, never feels like I have enough air and I can't stay under the water long enough to glide. I wrote an article for you, sir. It is called, Dude, You Are Not in Swimming Shape. It's as simple as that. Check out this article that I just put in there. Read that because you just got to get in better swimming shape. I would suggest swimming 5 days a week at least, and swimming at least 1,500 every time you're in there. Do that 50-50 workout that's in the article I just posted up there. That's the problem. Yeah, longer swim with fins isn't that bad because it's a little more lower heart rate endurance issues. Swimming without fins going to require more kicking, uh, more movement of kicks, and a lot of people are maybe not as efficient without fins. So could be an efficiency issue, but it's definitely a conditioning issue. So two things you got to do when you're trying to learn to swim: perfect technique and get in swimming shape. That's it. It's either one or the other. Let's see. Bambino is a senior in high school. Haven't taken the ASFAB yet. When do you recommend taking it if you're going for buds? I don't recommend taking it for another 2 years. Spend the next couple of years actually maturing and getting in shape. Most teenagers don't make it through buds. Why subject yourself to that? When you're not physically and mentally ready. In fact, I'm going to share with you an article called Perfect Storm for Failure. And if you're a teenager heading to buds, you are probably going to be meeting many of these perfect storm for failures. It's statistics, folks. It's not me being prejudiced towards teenagers. Most teenagers do not make it. The ones that do are exceptional human beings. And I'm proven wrong every class. But I'm also proven right because a majority of that 75 to 90% attrition rate are teenagers. Hello, is hypertrophy necessary in a training cycle? Does it relate to strength? Yes, it does relate to strength. You have bigger muscles, you can make them a little stronger. However, you don't need a hypertrophy cycle if you already are, strong and big enough. If you're a skinny kid, maybe come out of a cross country background, you might need a hypertrophy cycle, just to build up some mass, to stay warm, to build some strength with. Um, it really depends on the athletic history of the person. Like I did not go through a hypertrophy cycle because for 7 years prior to me wanting to go spec ops, all of my athletics were hypertrophy and strength cycles. The thing that I didn't do was a lot of endurance. So I was strong and fast for about 100 meters. I had some agility in there too, but running for a mile and a half or more was way long distance. So it really depends on the individual. So no, in my case, hypertrophy was not necessary in a training cycle for spec ops. It was when I was playing football. Really kind of depends on your goals too. Do you have any plans for writing a hypertrophy diet specific book? No, I don't. If someone was planning long-term SOF, How do they want to really bulk up? What would you advise? Here, I'm going to write a book for you right now. It's called If You Want to Be Big, You Have to Eat Big and Lift Big. Period. That's it. That's my recommendation for getting bigger and getting stronger. Eat big, lift big. That's it. So, also on the topic, do interval training sprints have the same effect on building up your legs as running high mileage? What are you trying to do? Yeah, high mileage won't build big, bulky legs. Sprints will build muscular legs. All you got to do is look at an athlete at the Olympics. Look at the people who are running the 200 meters and look at the people who are running the 10,000 meters. You know, the 200-meter dudes are jacked, right? Upper body and lower body. The 10K and the marathoners are not. They are quite skinny. But you need to, if you're trying to go into spec ops, you definitely need to run some endurance. So you need some cardio and calisthenic cycles. That's what we are right now, cows and cardio, spring and summer. But we spent all winter lifting. So we're just kind of going through the cycle. We'll still maintain some strength stuff, with our block periodization model, right? Spring training. This has 3 weeks of cows and cardio, getting good at running and swimming and high rep calisthenics. But every 4th week of this cycle, we actually maintain our strength and speed and agility activities as well. Have you looked at the Air Force Special Warfare Initial Fitness Test? CFT, the IFT is very similar to the Navy PST, but the CFT is similar to the Army Combat Readiness Test. Yes. Are you talking about the OFT, the Operator Fitness Test? Because the Air Force has made more changes in the last year with their fitness testing, and it is very challenging to keep up with everything. But yes, I have written about the OFT. I need to look at the CFT model. I'm not sure if that is the same thing as the PASS test. Yeah. So, I mean, I tell you, what's really funny about the Air Force Special Warfare is I just downloaded all their latest tests, and that was maybe 6 months ago. And from what you're telling me here, they've renamed them all. So they're in a state of change, state of flux that I'm going to start listening when they quit changing their name every 6 months. I'll try to keep up as best I can, but damn, you can only do so much with all the different fitness tests that are out there. Yeah, but Timothy, if you would share what the IFT CFT is. All right. And they probably just changed it from the PASS test, from what I understand. And the CFT is also called the OFT, which is the Operator Fitness Test, which is just an easier version of the OFT. So there you go. All right. So Tony is banging out some pull-ups, aiming for 600 at 2:30 right now. 600 pull-ups. We'll probably run sand armpits to make it. Okay, I'm sure you're joking now. Okay. Oh, okay, that's funny. I've heard some argue that the intensity of shorter, high intensity sprints have the same effect on your legs as running really high mileage. As far as what? Hypertrophy or leg endurance? I'm not sure what you've heard. 931, mile and a half, but only in the 40 range for sit-ups. Any suggestions on how to fix sit-ups? Yes. Work on your hip flexors. So it should be a variety of exercises you do. You should do sit-ups. You should do flutter kicks and leg levers and hanging knee ups. Balance it out with some plank poses, bear crawls. I think all of those together with learning how to do pacing for your sit-ups. I think a lot of people screw up sit-ups because they start off way too fast in the first 30 seconds and they can't match what they did in 30 seconds in the next minute and a half. So pace yourself. Like, let's say, put it this way, you're at 40 now. Try this. Try pacing yourself and only doing 15 every 30 seconds, right? So that means like one every 2 seconds, do a sit-up, right? And see if you can last for 2 minutes. You never know. You might be at 60 if you can just slow down that pace. It's kind of like sprinting the first quarter mile of that mile and a half. So right now you're at like a minute 35 at a quarter mile, if you run a mile and a half at that 9:30 pace. So imagine instead of 95 seconds, you run that first one in 75 seconds. Now let's see how the remaining 5 laps look on that mile and a half. You just gassed out. So slow down your pace a little bit in the first 30 seconds and see what happens there. My advice is try to get somewhere between 15 and 20 every 30 seconds. And that's going to get you somewhere between 60 and 80 for this next goal. That's how you get better at sit-ups. But you also need to work on your hip flexor endurance. What do you think about supplementing running on a treadmill sometimes compared to road and track? Absolutely. If you listen to the beginning of this show, I talked about shin splints. Many people get shin splints because they just run on the road and track and hard surfaces. If you can run half of your runs on soft surfaces, I highly recommend it. And yes, plus you can set the pace too. So yeah, nothing wrong with that. What is your recommended recovery time for different levels of pyramid workouts, 1 to 10 and the 1 to max? Well, the way I usually set pyramids up is I do multiple exercises with them. So I'm doing a pull up, I'm doing a push up, I'm doing a sit up or some other core activity. And then maybe I'm doing another push activity, maybe dips. So the rest is actually those other exercises, right? So you don't need, you're getting a significant amount of rest before you do pull ups again with those pull ups. The only one that's really getting taxed maybe is your push ups and dips combo. That's usually a real hard combo, but you're resting with those abs in between. Now, another great way to rest is put in a running set every set. So something you could do is somewhere between 100 meters and a quarter mile every single set of that pyramid. Yes, that means you're going to run 1900s, or once you get in better running shape, you can run 19 quarter miles. We just did that one last week where you run a quarter mile every set of the regular pyramid. If you do the math, that's going to give you, 4.75 miles at the end of that workout. That's plenty of muscle rest and recovery time for the next set. You really don't need to rest other than getting a sip of water. Keep on moving. It's all about active rest. Muscle stamina and your ability to recover is the goal of those type of workouts. So the more you recover, the less of the goal of the workout you're doing. So you want to try to recover less. Now, if you're just out of shape and you need to rest, that's one thing. And then you'll build up to it and reduce your rest, increase your sets. That's a logical progression. But for me, I try to not rest at all. Should I learn muscle ups at 13 years old, or should I focus on my aerobic block? Um, well, aerobics and muscle ups have nothing to do with each other. So they're two different things. I think you should do a strength and power exercise. Um, and you should work on your aerobic block. A muscle up is not necessary. Put it this way, I've never done a muscle up until I was, I don't know, probably 30. So um, I just never did it. It was just one of those things that it's like a cheating pull up to get up there and do a pull up and a dip. I don't think they're a necessary exercise. Unless you're taking a muscle up test, I don't see why you need to worry about muscle up, especially at age 13. And besides, most people do it wrong and they wind up hurting their shoulder. I have seen more people like dislocate or separate a shoulder from doing muscle ups from either like coming down too hard or getting up and then chicken winging it like this. And then next thing you know, their shoulder hurts for 2 months and they can't do any pull ups or push ups. So you gotta be careful with things that are potentially injurious that could definitely affect how you train for months ahead. For me, I would personally skip the muscle ups and do pull ups and push ups and dips versus risk being injured and not being able to do pull ups, push ups, and dips for 2 months. That's just my opinion. Based on what you see in videos and documentaries, why certain candidates are really jacked and why others are not, even if they are essentially doing the same things. Everybody's different. Everybody's different. Everybody has a different body type. Everybody has a different way they burn calories. Growth, genetics, call it what you want. Um, I, throughout my entire life, have put on muscle mass quickly. Um, Even at 13 years old, when I started lifting weights, I people thought I was in high school. Um, just the way it was. But there were people that would lift weights with me. I had friends that lift weights with me, never gain any weight. Right. So it's just they just didn't go through that growth spurt at that time. So a lot of it is age, genetics, and usually athletic history. Like I came from a powerlifting lifting background, so lifting has always been easy for me, and gaining weight has been once I was 20 plus was easier for me. As a teenager, it was challenging. Um, but running has always been the harder of the activities. Anything cardio, right? It has taken a long time to be able to get good at calisthenics and get good at cardio events. To the point where I didn't lift for like 18 months and all I did was basically run triathlons and do calisthenics to become a muscle stamina and endurance athlete that I needed to be to go into spec ops. But that was my athletic history. There are people completely opposite that needed to be in the weight room and lifting and putting on mass because they were already endurance athletes. They just lack strength. So the tactical athlete has to be good at all of those. And depending on your athletic history, is depending on how you need to structure your workouts to address those specific weaknesses that you bring to the table on the day that you decide you're going to go down this tactical fitness journey. Hope that helps. All right, folks. These are some good questions. Nice work. So, if you guys have any more questions, just get them to me. Stu at StuSmith.com. Email me. You can find me on Instagram, StuSmith50, even on TikTok. And Stu Smith 50 on TikTok, and my TikTok channel is nothing but me doing CSS critiques. So instead of hunting through the 500 videos or so that I have on YouTube to find CSS videos, you can go to TikTok and see 100 plus CSS videos of me critiquing people with various issues, and some of them have perfect CSS. So you can see what it looks like when it's really good and what it looks like when there's very common type issues that occur. Tony. Okay, so Tony, um, I don't know if he was joking or not, but anyway, it was funny to me because it sounded ridiculous. All right, folks. Well, that is it. Um, once again, email me if you got questions. If you want, check out StuSmithFitness.com for my latest articles. Just hit that article section. Ton of free information over there. If you want to buy something, got tons of programs like my latest spring training, getting to and through selection, good block periodization model. Compete 20 saves you 20% if you want to go. All right. I will chat with you guys later. Have a good one.